Excuse me, Serbot. What you just said is a linguistic trap. If they sign, they'll lose control of everything. The room went silent. A dozen suits turned their heads in perfect synchronization. Some blinked, incredulous. Others narrowed their eyes, unsure who had the audacity to interrupt the most influential person in the room. At the far end of the expansive marble conference table sat Sheikh Hassan al-Rashid. His impeccably tailored gray suit reflected the soft glow of the chandelier. His words, spoken just moments ago in a dialect of Arabic unfamiliar to most American ears, lingered in the air like an unnoticed smoke, now suddenly stinging. The voice hadn't come from the translators, the legal team, or even the row of executive assistants silently typing notes. It had originated from a woman holding a silver tray of bottled water, standing perfectly straight with her back to the wall, as if she had trained herself to become invisible. Her name tag read Maya. Maya Williams didn't even flinch under the weight of a dozen startled stares. Her hand remained steady. She gently placed the water on the nearby table, straightened her posture, and met Sheikh Hassan's gaze. Her expression was calm, focused, and certain, but not confrontational. He studied her. The subtle arrogance of a man who was accustomed to being the smartest person in the room wavered for a moment, just a fraction of a second. Only a second? You speak Arabic? He asked, switching to English now, his tone sharp but composed. Maya responded in Arabic, using the same dialect he had just spoken. And I understand the difference between intention and manipulation. Your Excellency, someone gasped. A white-haired partner from Landstone Holdings leaned back in his leather chair, visibly flustered. Is she even on the staff? She's a server, someone whispered. Maya ignored them. Her eyes remained fixed on the sheik. What you just said, that you'll leave the option open for adjustment based on local compliance, was interpreted as benign, but the way you phrased it implies you can override any decision retroactively. That's not a safety clause, it's an override clause. The translator beside Sheikh Hassan looked down at his notes, visibly sweating. Do you have legal training? The sheik asked. I have a master's degree in international finance, she replied, still speaking in Arabic. And I worked 3 years for an investment board in Abu Dhabi before returning home to care for my mother. The sheik's eyes hardened. You interrupt my statement in front of my counterparts, then accuse me of deception? This is disrespectful. Maya's lips tightened, but she stood firm. I meant no disrespect, sir. Only clarity. You are not part of this negotiation. You are a maid, he said coldly. Security should escort her out. Maya felt heat surge up her neck. Across the table, someone muttered, Let her speak. She might be right. Another voice, Robert Malloy from Landstone, intervened with cautious diplomacy. Your Excellency, perhaps we should clarify the clause before proceeding, for everyone's confidence. The sheik didn't respond immediately. His gaze bore into Maya. Then, with a dismissive wave of his hand, he abandoned the idea of having her removed, but he did not apologize. You worked in Abu Dhabi? He asked. Yes. Where? The National Sovereign Fund, Internal Risk Review Division? The sheik tilted his head. You're not just a maid. No, Maya said quietly, but that's what pays the bills right now. He didn't smile, but he nodded once, then turned to his translator. How long have you known she was right? The man froze. I thought. Leave, Hassan said. The translator hurried out, his briefcase flapping. Maya stood still, unsure what to do next. She could feel her heart pounding and the heat rising in her neck. Was she about to be thanked or fired? The sheik turned to Malloy. This meeting is over. We will reconvene when your team has someone capable of understanding the documents. Tomorrow noon. He stood. Maya quietly exited, walking down the long, echoing corridor toward the staff elevator. She passed a few junior analysts, all too stunned to meet her eye. As the elevator doors closed behind her, her shoulders finally sagged. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in years, she hadn't let herself disappear, and someone important had listened. Maya stepped out into the back hallway of the Empire Grand Hotel, the heavy door closing behind her with a thud that echoed like a final judgment. She walked quickly, not stopping until she reached the service elevator. As the numbers lit up one by one, descending from the top floor, her hands trembled. She clenched them into fists and forced herself to breathe deeply. One breath in, one breath out. She had just challenged one of the wealthiest men in the world in front of a dozen powerful executives. And now she was standing next to a mop bucket. The elevator opened. Inside stood Carmen, one of the housekeepers. Her eyes widened when she saw Maya. "Girl, what did you do up there?" "Half the kitchen's buzzing." Maya gave a tight smile. "I might have said a little too much." Carmen tilted her head. "Too much or just enough?" "I don't know yet," Maya said as the elevator descended. "Maybe both." They rode in silence for a moment. Then Carmen touched her arm gently. "You did what you had to. You looked out for them, even if they didn't know they needed it." Maya nodded. She wanted to believe that, but reality was more complicated. When she got back to the employee locker room, her supervisor, Mr. Jenkins, was waiting. He looked like he'd been sweating bullets for 20 minutes. "You're on thin ice," he said without even a greeting. "I've already got 3 calls from upper management." "I wasn't trying to cause trouble," Maya said. "I overheard something dangerous. I spoke up." "You spoke out of turn. That was a multi-billion-dollar meeting," he said, pacing. "You embarrassed them. You embarrassed this hotel." "No," Maya said, her voice calm. "I protected them from signing away their rights." He paused. "Be that as it may, Maya, you can't just—" A new voice interrupted. "She stays." Both of them turned. Standing in the doorway was Veronica Ellison, the hotel's general manager. Tall with silver-streaked hair and a commanding presence, she was rarely seen outside her corner office. Now she stepped into the room like a judge descending into court. "Miss Williams showed more insight in 5 minutes than some lawyers do in 5 months," Veronica continued. "She will not be punished for that." Mr. Jenkins sputtered, but didn't argue. Veronica looked at Maya. "You're off floor duties for the rest of the day. Come to my office at 3. Maya nodded slowly, stunned. Veronica walked away without another word. At 2:55, Maya stood outside the office on the 31st floor, her palms slick with sweat. She smoothed down her uniform, suddenly aware of the faded stitching on the collar. When Veronica opened the door, Maya stepped inside cautiously. The room was minimalist but elegant, with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the Hudson. Framed awards lined the wall. A single photo on the desk showed Veronica shaking hands with President Carter decades ago. "Sit," she said. Maya obeyed. Veronica studied her. "You worked in Abu Dhabi?" "Yes, ma'am." "Why did you leave?" "My mother got sick. I came back to help. Then, after she passed, well, the gap on my resume scared people. They stopped seeing my degrees and just saw my skin, my name." Veronica nodded. "That's the world. But today you made the right people notice." Maya said nothing. "I looked you up," Veronica said, tapping her keyboard. "National Sovereign Fund, 3 years overseeing risk compliance for contracts over $100 million. Yes. You could have walked away today. Let them sign. Let them fall." Maya looked down. "I couldn't. I knew what that clause meant." Veronica leaned back. "You want back in?" Maya blinked. "Back in the real world, the table. You've still got the mind, the spine. What you lack is opportunity. Let's change that." Maya sat back, stunned. I don't know. I haven't touched a legal document in years." "That didn't stop you from saving a deal." Veronica stood and handed her a thick binder. "This is the draft contract they were reviewing, annotated. Show me where the problems are. You have 24 hours. Maya clutched the binder like a life raft. "Thank you." As she stood to leave, Veronica added, "And Maya, what you did took courage. That kind of courage doesn't go unnoticed." Back in the staff lounge, Carmen stared at the binder in Maya's hands like it was made of gold. "Girl, is that what I think it is? I think I'm being tested." "No, baby," Carmen said with a proud smile. "You're being seen." Maya stayed up late that night. She brewed a pot of tea, sat at the tiny kitchen table in her one-bedroom apartment and spread out the binder, sticky notes, highlighters, and a pen that had belonged to her mother. Her living room light flickered every now and then, and the radiator clanged like an old man coughing in the corner, but Maya didn't care. Clause by clause, she dug through the document. The same patterns emerged. Strategic ambiguity, retroactive language, ownership displacement disguised as partnership. Her back ached and her eyes blurred. At midnight, she poured herself another cup of tea and stared out the window. The city glowed beneath a sky smeared with orange haze. Somewhere out there, the world was shifting, and maybe, just maybe, she was shifting with it. The next morning, Maya stood once again outside Veronica Ellison's office. She hadn't slept more than 3 hours, but adrenaline carried her up the elevator, past the polished brass plaques and marble columns, and now to this moment. She clutched the annotated binder to her chest like it held her future, because it just might. Veronica looked up as she entered. "You're early," she said, glancing at the clock. "I finished it," Maya said, placing the binder on the desk. "I flagged 10 sections with potential manipulation, 5 with cultural misinterpretation, and 3 with legal overreach that could trigger international arbitration." Veronica raised an eyebrow. "You worked all night?" Maya didn't answer directly. "It's cleaner now, but if they had signed yesterday, it would have been a disaster." Veronica opened the binder and flipped through the pages. Her expression stayed unreadable, but Maya noticed the occasional pause at a margin note referencing Article 14 of the Foreign Investment Act, and another next to a clause marked ambiguous authority handover. "You've still got it," Veronica finally said, closing the binder gently. Maya breathed out slowly, her hands clasped in her lap. "You remind me of someone," Veronica continued. "Your father, James Williams." Maya's heart skipped. "You knew my father?" "I did. He was the one who wrote the emergency financial reform proposals in the 90s. Quiet man, brilliant mind, never took credit." A lump rose in Maya's throat. "He used to say justice was a long road, but someone had to start walking." Veronica smiled faintly. "Seems you inherited more than his eyes." There was a soft knock at the door. An assistant peeked in. "Ma'am, the Sheik's liaison is here. They've requested Maya be present at the noon renegotiation." Maya's eyes widened. "What?" Veronica stood. "It appears your voice carries further than you thought." Maya entered the conference room at 12:01 p.m. This time not as a server but as a consultant. Her uniform had been replaced with a conservative gray dress, a leather binder in hand. She walked past the same men who had looked through her the day before. Now their eyes followed her, unsure, some skeptical, others respectful. Sheikh Hassan sat at the head of the table. This time, there was no translator beside him. He greeted her with a nod. "Miss Williams." Maya replied in Arabic, "Your Excellency." There was a flicker of a smile. He gestured for her to sit near him. Robert Malloy, looking more rumpled than usual, shifted in his chair. "We've reviewed the contract and acknowledged that certain clauses need clarification. With Miss Williams's input, we hope to reach a mutual understanding." The negotiation began. Maya spoke sparingly only when asked, but each time she did, the tension in the room shifted. Her tone was professional but direct, pointing out areas of friction and offering culturally respectful revisions. She translated between legal intent and diplomatic nuance, restoring equilibrium to a room that had nearly collapsed under misunderstanding. 2 hours in, the meeting paused for refreshments. Maya stepped into the hallway, needing air. As she leaned against the cool stone wall, a voice behind her said, "You don't belong here." She turned. A tall man in a dark suit, Michael Trent, a junior partner at Landstone, stood with his arms crossed. "Excuse me," Maya replied. "You're not part of this deal. You don't have clearance, and you sure as hell don't have a seat at this table just because you corrected one sentence." Maya didn't respond immediately. She simply looked at him, calm and composed. "My clearance," she said softly, "is written in the footnotes you ignored." Before he could answer, Veronica appeared beside them. Mr. Trent, if you have concerns about staff assignments, you can take them up with me. Trent mumbled something and walked off. Veronica turned to Maya. You okay? Maya nodded. He's just afraid of change. Good, Veronica said. Because change is happening, and it's looking right at you. Back in the room, the tone had shifted. Sheikh Hassan leaned forward as Maya explained how to reword the compliance clause. She used a metaphor from Arabic literature about planting olive trees in soil foreign to them but tending them with care. He listened, then nodded. You speak with more than language, he said. You speak with understanding. By the end of the meeting, both sides had agreed to rewrite the contract. No one said it out loud, but the room knew Maya had brokered the balance. As the executives filed out, Sheikh Hassan remained seated. Maya, he said, you spoke truth to power yesterday. That is dangerous and rare. She bowed her head. I didn't plan to speak. I just couldn't stay quiet. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a coin. In our culture, when someone saves a negotiation, we give them a token, not as payment, but as a memory. He placed the coin in her palm. It was old, etched with Arabic script and worn at the edges. Thank you, she said quietly. Later that night, as Maya returned home, she placed the coin next to her father's photo on the bookshelf. The light from the lamp caught the metal just right, casting a long shadow behind it. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel invisible. She felt seen, and more than that, she felt remembered. 2 days after the renegotiation, Maya Williams found herself walking into a room she never imagined entering. It wasn't the conference hall, Veronica's office, or even the towering suite of the Sheikh. It was the legal department on the 35th floor, behind a biometric door she had once walked past carrying a tray of bottled water. Now she was stepping in with a clearance badge and a fresh ID clipped to her blazer. Inside, the room buzzed with the sound of controlled chaos. Legal analysts murmuring over contract printouts, assistants typing notes, and a dry erase board filled with flowcharts and deadlines. As Maya entered, half a dozen heads turned. Some eyes narrowed with skepticism. Others simply blinked, surprised. At the far end of the room stood a familiar figure. Veronica Ellison, flanked by Harold Keene, the firm's senior legal counsel. Maya, Veronica said, her voice crisp. Glad you're here. We're reviewing preliminary drafts for the next 2 joint ventures with the Sheikh's firm. We'd like you to audit the equity clauses. Harold looked at Maya with raised eyebrows. You're not a licensed attorney. I'm a licensed analyst with expertise in cross-border finance and risk compliance. Maya replied calmly. I don't need to argue the law. I just need to flag the traps. He gave a non-committal grunt and returned to the documents. As Maya settled into a desk beside the legal team, her fingers ran over the surface of the polished mahogany. She remembered wiping tables like this just a few weeks ago. Now, she was reviewing documents that could impact millions. But the transition wasn't without friction. Hours into her audit, a junior analyst named Cynthia leaned over. Just curious, she said in a low voice. How does one go from housekeeping to high table? Is that some kind of DEI initiative? Maya kept her eyes on the page. I guess when you know what a trap clause looks like in Arabic, the door opens. Cynthia chuckled bitterly and turned away. Maya took a breath. She wasn't here to prove anything. She was here because they had failed to see what mattered, and she hadn't. By late afternoon, Maya flagged 3 major inconsistencies. One clause shifted liability in the event of market fluctuations, potentially exposing the hotel to foreign lawsuits. Another subtly restructured control rights under the guise of flexibility. And the third, buried deep in the IP licensing, implied a surrender of brand usage in perpetuity. She emailed her notes to Veronica, then walked down to the cafe in the lobby for a moment of peace. As she stirred her tea, a man approached. He wore a tailored navy suit and carried a leather briefcase embossed with gold initials. Maya recognized him. Philip Warren, external counsel and longtime advisor to Landstone Holdings. You made quite the impression, he said as he sat across from her without asking. I'm just doing my job. Philip leaned in. I've read your annotations. They're sharp. Some might even say aggressive. Maya gave him a level look. Some might say effective. He smiled faintly. You're stepping on some very old toes, Miss Williams. Just be careful where you aim your heels. Maya set her teacup down. I don't aim to step on anyone, but I won't walk around traps to protect egos. Philip nodded slowly. Fair enough, but in this city, truth has sharp edges, and it tends to cut the ones who carry it. With that, he stood and walked off. That evening, Maya received a message from Veronica. Private meeting, 7 p.m. Top floor. She arrived at the penthouse suite, unsure what to expect. When the doors opened, she was greeted by candlelight, classical jazz, and the sheik himself, seated near the balcony. He rose. Maya, please sit. She hesitated. I didn't know this would be private. Yes, it had to be. Too many ears downstairs. She sat across from him. I wanted to thank you, he said. We finalized the amended contracts today. Because of you, we avoided a future war. Maya inclined her head. I just did what anyone with a conscience would. No, he said softly. Most would stay silent. You challenged me publicly, and you were right. A long pause stretched between them. Then he added, I've had many advisors, few I trust, fewer I remember. Maya smiled politely. I'm not looking to be remembered, just useful. He chuckled. Then allow me to offer something useful in return. He handed her a small envelope. Inside was a contract. Consulting work with his firm's U.S. division, a generous retainer, remote flexibility, and full access to global teams. I can't. Maya started. You already have, he said. This is just formalizing what you've proven. She held the contract with careful hands. It was more than a job. It was recognition, redemption. Later, as she stood outside under the night sky, the wind brushing her cheeks, Maya looked up at the glowing windows above Manhattan. Just weeks ago, she was wiping fingerprints off the glass in those offices. Now, she was rewriting what went on inside them. The battle wasn't over, not by a long shot, but for the first time, she had a seat at the table and she wasn't giving it up. 3 days into her new consulting role, Maya Williams arrived early at the downtown office of Al Rashid Capital's American branch. The building, with its black glass exterior and sleek marble lobby, buzzed with quiet precision. Maya wore a charcoal blazer and soft leather flats. Practical, confident. She carried a tablet loaded with reports and a mind sharpened by years of silence and watching. But she wasn't just seen now. She was being watched. It began subtly. Files she requested disappeared for hours before reappearing incomplete. Her badge access would glitch at certain doors, forcing her to wait until a receptionist fixed it. Comments were passed in hushed tones when she walked by. Not all of it was overtly hostile, but it was clear someone didn't like her there. Still, Maya pushed forward. That morning, she sat across from Amal Faird, a risk analyst from Dubai, who had flown in to help onboard Maya. Amal was quiet but efficient, with a graceful demeanor and a sharp mind. As they combed through a logistics memorandum, Amal glanced up. You know, they expected you to take the money and fade away. Maya looked up. Who's they? The board, legal, half of your floor. Amal smiled softly. Instead, you came in and asked for the source documents. You ignored the symbolic appointments. Clearly, they returned to their work, but the air around them shifted, charged with mutual respect. Later that afternoon, Maya stepped into the copy room for a quick print job. As the machine hummed, she heard 2 voices outside the door. I'm telling you, she's digging too deep. She was supposed to nod politely, not question the Zurich transfer. She flagged it to Veronica. If it goes to compliance. The voices trailed off as the speakers walked away. Maya froze. Zurich transfer. She hadn't reviewed any documents mentioning Zurich. She returned to her desk, her pulse racing. That night, in her small apartment, she opened her laptop and dug through archived documents. The system still allowed her access. Using a search filter, she typed Zurich. One result popped up, buried in the footnotes of a miscellaneous assets file tied to a shell subsidiary. The amount was staggering, $23 million, marked as environmental reallocation. But there was no project attached, no timeline, no signatures, just a reference code and a transaction path that looped through 3 countries. Maya leaned back in her chair. This wasn't a mistake. It was a cover-up. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Should she flag it or investigate further? Her phone buzzed. A message from Veronica. Private meeting, 7 a.m. My office alone. Maya barely slept. At dawn, she dressed in dark slacks, a simple navy blouse, and tied her hair back. She entered the building through the side security entrance and rode the elevator alone. Veronica's office was lit by the early morning sun. She stood by the window, arms crossed, coffee untouched on the table behind her. "You found it," she said without turning. "I haven't said anything," Maya replied. "You don't have to. The system logs searches. I got the alert." Maya took a step closer. "What is it?" "Payment, disguised. It was pushed through just before the Sheik's first U.S. visit. Some on the board wanted to sweeten the deal in advance. I found out 2 weeks ago, and I've been quietly gathering what I can. But I needed someone they wouldn't suspect. Someone they thought was too new, too unimportant." Maya's breath hitched. "You used me." Veronica turned, a shadow of hurt crossing her face. "I trusted you. That's not the same." "No," Veronica said softly, her voice laced with a quiet understanding. "It isn't. But, Maya, do you know how many people in this building would rather let this disappear than risk a scandal? It's not just fraud. It's a betrayal to the Sheik, to our partners, and to the people who put their faith in this company." Maya looked down at her hands, her fingers tracing invisible patterns on her lap. "What happens now? I need you to finish what you started. Find the full path of that money. The board meets in 10 days. If we can prove who authorized it, we can cut out the rot. And if we can't, then you go back to wiping windows and I get replaced by someone who will pretend they saw nothing." Maya left the office in a whirlwind of thoughts. Her head was buzzing with the implications of what she'd just learned. But her heart remained steady, a solid anchor in the storm. This wasn't the job she initially signed up for, but it was beginning to feel like the reason she'd been called to this place. That night, back in her small apartment, Maya hunched over encrypted files, her brow furrowed in concentration. She meticulously connected transaction IDs, tracing the complex web of wire transfers through Cyprus, Singapore, and eventually Zurich. The deeper she delved, the more unsettling the picture became. Names began to surface, flickering on her screen like unwelcome ghosts. One in particular made her pause, her breath catching in her throat. Philip Warren, the very same man who had warned her about the sharp edges of truth. She quickly snapped a photo of the file with her secure phone, encrypted the image to ensure its safety, and sent it to Veronica. 1 minute later, her screen went black. A complete system shutdown. Total override. She stared at the dark, lifeless monitor, her mind racing to understand what was happening. In the hallway outside her apartment, she heard the distinct echo of footsteps. Someone new. She was sure of it. Maya didn't move, her body frozen in place. The screen might have gone black, but the low hum of her computer tower remained. A ghostly echo in the sudden quiet of her apartment. A reminder of the secrets it held. She sat motionless, her eyes fixed on the blank monitor, her breath shallow and measured. Then she heard it again. The slow, deliberate sound of someone approaching her door. One step, then another. The old floorboards of the hallway creaked under the pressure, the weight too heavy for a neighbor simply heading to the elevator. This was something different. This felt calculated, predatory. She stood up slowly, her mind racing, trying to formulate a plan. Her phone was still in her pocket, but useless. No service, no Wi-Fi. Someone had deliberately cut her off. Another creak of the floorboards. She reached for the small desk drawer, pulling it open without a sound. Inside, nestled beneath a jumble of old receipts, was her late father's silver flashlight, a relic from another time. She gripped it tightly, not so much for its light, but for its reassuring weight in her hand. Then came the knock. A single, heavy knock that didn't ask for permission. It demanded it. Maya moved silently to the door and pressed her eye against the peephole. A man in a dark jacket stood there, his features obscured by the dim light. No delivery uniform, no badge, no expression. His face was blank, almost unnervingly so. His posture calm, but his eyes swept the hallway with a predatory intensity, as if he were searching for any sign of weakness. He knocked again, the sound echoing through the small apartment. She didn't answer. After what felt like an eternity, he turned and walked away, but not before pausing to look directly into the peephole, as if he knew she was watching him, as if he wanted her to know she had been seen. Maya waited until she was absolutely certain he was gone, then exhaled slowly, her breath escaping in a shaky sigh. Her fingers trembled as she powered down the machine and yanked the hard drive from its case, severing the connection to the compromised system. She placed it carefully into a sealed bag, protecting it from damage, and then tucked it under a loose floorboard in her closet, concealing it from prying eyes. She didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the building, every distant siren, sent a jolt of fear through her. By morning, she was sitting at a small table in a cafe 2 blocks away, nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee. She used a prepaid phone to connect through the cafe's public Wi-Fi, a temporary measure to maintain some semblance of security. She composed an encrypted message to Veronica, her fingers flying across the screen. I was breached. Suspect physical tail. Must meet off-site. 10 minutes later, the reply came, short and to the point. Understood. Elmhurst Library Basement Conference Room. Noon. Burn this number. At 11:45 a.m. Maya entered the Elmhurst Library, her footsteps echoing softly in the grand entrance hall. Her heart pounded with every step, a frantic drumbeat against her ribs. This place, once a childhood haven filled with the comforting scent of storybooks and the hushed silence of learning, now felt like the edge of a battlefield, a place of potential danger and hidden threats. Veronica sat alone at the far end of the basement conference room, bathed in the pale light filtering through the high windows. No files, no laptop, just a simple pen and a pad of paper. The image was stark and unsettling. You're not paranoid, she said as Maya entered, her voice low and serious. I got a security alert. Someone tried to access my drive remotely at 3 a.m. That's not a coincidence. I traced the Zurich path, Maya said, cutting straight to the chase. The final signature is from Philip Warren. He's the key, but someone already knows we found him. Veronica leaned forward, her expression grim. Then we move now, quietly. You have the backup, right? It's hidden. I'll retrieve it tonight. Good, because tomorrow I'm taking this to the Sheik himself. Maya's eyes widened, her surprise evident. You're not going through compliance? Not with the board compromised. He deserves to know who's betraying him. Maya nodded, her resolve hardening. Then I'll get you what you need. That night, Maya returned home through the back stairwell, her eyes constantly scanning the shadows, alert for any sign of danger. Her apartment was quiet, eerily so, but there were no obvious signs of forced entry. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. She moved quickly, pulling up the floorboard and retrieving the drive from its hiding place. But when she turned, she wasn't alone. Philip Warren stood in her living room, his presence filling the small space with an unsettling menace. Well done, he said, his voice smooth and deceptively calm. I told you the truth cuts both ways. Maya didn't flinch, refusing to show any sign of fear. You're not here for small talk. No, he admitted, his eyes fixed on her. I'm here to offer a deal. She raised an eyebrow, her expression skeptical. You break into my home to negotiate? I prefer the word, intervene. Intervene in what? In your crusade, Maya, listen. This game, it's not about right or wrong. It's about who survives the fallout. And I'm offering you a way out. 6 figures, a new name, a fresh start. She stared at him, her gaze unwavering. So, I disappear and you keep laundering money through cultural exchanges and shell firms. He shrugged, a dismissive gesture that did little to hide the ruthlessness beneath the surface. Something like that. Her face hardened, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Then understand this, the moment Veronica steps into that meeting, she's done. They'll bury her in red tape. And you? You'll go from consultant to cautionary tale. Maya's voice dropped, laced with steel. You threatened me the day we met. Now you're just confirming who you really are. Philip stepped closer, his presence looming over her. You have no idea what world you're in. Maybe, Maya said, her voice unwavering, but I'm learning fast. She reached into her pocket and clicked on a small, old-fashioned recording dongle clipped to her coat. It had been running since she walked in. Philip's eyes narrowed as he noticed the device. That won't hold up in court. It doesn't have to, she said, her gaze locked on his. It just has to make it to the sheik. He stared at her for a long, silent second, weighing his options, then turned and walked out, leaving the apartment as quickly as he had entered. The next morning, Veronica received a USB drive delivered by courier. No sender, no return address. Inside was a simple note in Maya's handwriting. The rest is up to you. Veronica slipped the USB drive into her tablet and pressed play. The sheik listened silently as Philip's voice echoed through the speakers, arrogant and confident, detailing his scheme. When it ended, there was a long pause, the silence broken only by the hum of the electronics. He looked up, his eyes steely and resolute. We end this. For the first time in decades, Maya Williams had lit a match in the dark corridors of corporate silence. And now fire was coming. The morning sun streamed through the glass facade of Al Rashid Capital's American headquarters, but the energy in the boardroom felt colder than a Manhattan winter. Maya Williams slid into the chair beside Veronica Ellison, both women poised with a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. Today's agenda included new venture proposals and, most critically, addressing the clandestine payment that Philip Warren had orchestrated. Sheikh Hassan al-Rashid entered first, his presence commanding the room. He moved directly to the head of the table without exchanging pleasantries, his focus laser-sharp. His eyes, dark and discerning, passed over each board member before settling on Maya. Miss Williams, he said in English, his voice soft but firm, carrying an undeniable weight of authority. Your evidence was compelling. Maya inclined her head, acknowledging his words. Thank you, Your Excellency. Veronica adjusted her notepad and clicked her pen, preparing to present her findings. We've reviewed the USB drive and corroborated it with internal audit trails. She turned to the sheik, her voice clear and direct. Mr. Warren authorized the transfer without full board approval. He even manipulated compliance controls to cover the trail. She keyed a slide onto the large display behind her, showing the complex wire routes through Cyprus, Singapore, and then Zurich. A collective murmur rippled through the room. Maya noticed that half the room had stiffened, particularly Philip's legal counterpart, who looked visibly pale. A golf partner piped up, his voice measured and carefully controlled. If this happened before my arrival, why didn't it come up earlier? Veronica responded without hesitation, meeting his gaze directly. Because Mr. Warren removed those transactions from standard reporting. Internal audit flagged minor inconsistencies, but Warren denied them access, claiming it was a matter of executive privilege. She turned back to Maya. That's when Maya began tracing it through encrypted logs, bypassing the official channels. The room seemed to swallow hard, the tension thickening with each word. Sheikh Hassan closed his eyes briefly, as if absorbing the weight of the information, then opened them again, his expression resolute. I entrusted my American operations to experienced professionals. I did not expect deception from within. Silence filled the space, heavy and suffocating. I want an independent inquiry, and until that completes, Mr. Warren must step down from compliance duties. Even from where she sat, Maya could feel the tension crackling in the air like static electricity. Philip Warren sat slack-shouldered but unbowed, his eyes burning with suppressed rage. Veronica clicked again, advancing the presentation. Additionally, Miss Williams' workflow revealed equity provisions in upcoming venture contracts that mirrored yesterday's trap clause vague language that could grant override authority retroactively. She paused, letting the implications sink in. There are 2 new proposals pending your signature. Sheik, might we have your permission to send them to Maya for review before final signing? Sheikh Hassan's gaze sharpened, his eyes focusing intently on Maya. Are you comfortable with that? She swallowed, realizing this was far more than she had initially bargained for. Yes, Your Excellency. I'd be honored to help. The golf partner nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. Then it is done. A murmur of approval rose from the Western board members, a sign of cautious support. Robert Malaloy cleared his throat, his voice carrying a hint of enthusiasm. Maya's participation here signals a new level of transparency. I support it wholeheartedly. The sheik inclined his head, acknowledging the support. Very well. Let it be known. No document reaches my desk without her review. As the meeting transitioned to new venture discussions, Maya felt both exhilarated and haunted, a complex mix of triumph and trepidation. She introduced herself to Dr. Amal Farid, who had flown in again, their shared understanding creating a subtle connection between them. The strength in their partnership was growing. By midday, Maya was led to a small meeting room overlooking the river, the sunlight glinting off the water. Spread before her were digital drafts of the 2 contracts. One for an energy tech joint venture, the other for a supply chain partnership with a Southeast Asian firm. Maya clicked open the first contract. The preamble looked conventional enough, but she quickly noticed a familiar phrase that set off alarm bells in her mind. Contingent override based on regulatory realignment. She tapped the phrase on her tracker and typed a note. Requires clear definition of realignment. Suggest amendment to specify jurisdiction and time limit. In the second draft, her eyes caught a section on IP licensing, and her unease grew. Licensor grants exclusive rights in perpetuity as long as operational sustainability criteria are met. Operational sustainability. Who defined it? What metrics would be used? And in perpetuity gave far too much power to one party. She flagged the section and added a note. Define sustainability metrics. Limit term to 5 years. Require annual joint review. Her fingers hovered over the send button. She paused, considering the implications of her actions, and then hit it, sending the marked-up documents back to legal counsel. In that moment, she reminded herself that this was more than just editing legal wording. It was preserving fairness, ensuring accountability, and protecting the interests of those who might otherwise be exploited. At 3 p.m. Veronica walked in, a coffee in hand, her expression serious. Some board members questioned your suggestions, Philip especially. He called them unnecessary red tape. Maya pressed her pen against the table, her gaze unwavering. I'm not here to slow things down, just to ensure clarity and protect the interests of the company and its partners. Veronica smiled, a hint of approval in her eyes. That's all that matters. She called it red tape, huh? A firm voice said from beside her. Angelina Park, a senior compliance officer, stepped into the room, her presence adding another layer of seriousness to the conversation. Someone needs to ask why these clauses keep surfacing in new deals. Maya nodded at Angelina, acknowledging her point. That's exactly why I flagged them. Angelina glanced at the screen, then at Maya, her expression conveying a silent message of support. Good work. The afternoon progressed, with Maya's comments rolling back to legal counsel, generating a flurry of discussion and debate. She was invited to speak up, to explain her reasoning behind the proposed changes. She spoke of cultural differences arising from Gulf legal traditions, where vague phrasing sometimes masked discretionary powers. She emphasized that in a Western corporate environment, transparency needed specificity, that clarity was essential to fostering trust and ensuring ethical conduct. Each phrase she offered was met with nods from the Gulf advisors and cautious curiosity from the American Council, a sign that her message was resonating. At 5:30, the meeting finally ended. Veronica and Maya left together, their steps echoing in the quiet hallway. Outside, Veronica slipped an arm through Maya's, offering a gesture of camaraderie and support. You built a bridge today, Maya, but the foundation is still shaky. Maya exhaled, letting out a weary sigh. I saw the same issue in the first contract. I just didn't expect it to be so systematic, so deeply ingrained. Veronica shook her head, her expression grim. This goes deeper than we thought. But we'll patch each leak, one clause at a time. Back at her apartment that evening, Maya prepared a simple dinner. A bowl of lentil soup, crusty bread, and herbal tea. She turned on soft NPR in the background, letting the gentle voices fill the silence. The news reported low market volatility, a stark contrast to the personal turmoil she was experiencing. Maya poured soup into 2 bowls, then hesitated, as if expecting someone to join her. Then she ate half of each, a small act of defiance against the loneliness that threatened to engulf her. She sipped her tea and watched the city lights flicker, a million tiny lives unfolding in the darkness. She thought of her father's briefcase, the one she kept tucked under her bed, a tangible link to his legacy. She remembered a saying of his, a simple but powerful truth. A bridge doesn't protect you from the storm, it lets you cross it. Tomorrow there would be more contracts, more clauses, more challenges to face. But tonight, she had crossed one more mile of the journey, knowing that a bridge, once built, must stand, a testament to her commitment and her unwavering pursuit of justice. By the 3rd week of Maya Williams' consulting tenure, something had shifted not just within the walls of Al Rashid Capital, but within Maya herself. She no longer walked through the building unnoticed, a nameless face in the crowd. Security guards greeted her with measured nods, their expressions conveying a mixture of respect and curiosity. Junior analysts whispered her name with equal parts curiosity and caution, recognizing her as a force to be reckoned with. Executives, once dismissive of her presence, now regarded her as a necessary piece of a dangerous puzzle, a key player in a high-stakes game. But with respect came pressure, a heavy weight that settled on her shoulders with each passing day. The stakes were rising, and the risks were becoming increasingly clear. Early Tuesday morning, Maya arrived at her temporary office to find a thick manila envelope waiting on her desk. No name, no stamp, just the words, for your eyes only. Legacy Holdings. Her heart skipped a beat. The anonymous message sent a shiver of unease down her spine. She shut the door, pulled the blinds, cutting off the outside world, and opened the envelope. Inside were scanned copies of transaction ledgers from a subsidiary she didn't recognize, a company called Legacy Holdings LLC, registered in Delaware but with funds rerouted through Cayman accounts. There were repeated payments labeled infrastructure facilitation, totaling over $40 million in the last fiscal year. Each line item was vague, lacking the necessary detail to fully understand the purpose of the expenses. Some referenced offshore vendors, others were marked Asset Relocation Confidential. But one note, buried at the bottom of the second page, stood out, catching her eye like a beacon in the darkness. Q4 2023 Environmental Justice Initiative Redirected. Redirected. The word echoed in her mind, triggering a sense of outrage. She dug deeper, pulling up internal memos stored in archived email chains, searching for any mention of the Environmental Justice Initiative. Maya discovered that the EJI had been part of a high-profile public partnership approved for supporting water infrastructure and Native American reservations across the Midwest. It was meant to provide clean water, repair aging pipelines, and improve the lives of vulnerable communities. Yet, the funds had never arrived. Instead, the money had been redirected, flowing to a private equity firm with ties to Philip Warren's college roommate, a connection that was far too convenient to be coincidental. Her chest tightened, her breath catching in her throat. This wasn't just corporate fraud. It was moral theft, a betrayal of public trust on a grand scale. It was money stolen from communities with poisoned wells and crumbling pipelines, leaving them to suffer the consequences. She needed verification, something more concrete than these anonymous documents. Maya emailed Angelina Park and Amal Farid, requesting a discreet meeting in the back cafe of the building, away from prying eyes and listening ears. That afternoon, the 3 women sat huddled in a booth tucked behind a potted fern wall, their voices low and conspiratorial. Maya slid the pages across the table. This came anonymously. Legacy Holdings LLC, $40 million rerouted. It should have funded tribal clean water projects. Amal scanned the pages, her eyes narrowing as she absorbed the information. That firm, I've seen it mentioned in our London files. It's known for shady dealings. Angelina leaned forward, her expression grim. You said redirected to where? A shell firm in Nevada owned by Northbriar Equity. And guess who sits on their advisory board? Warren. They both answered in unison, their voices barely above a whisper. Philip Warren. Amal shook her head, her voice filled with concern. He's more embedded than we thought. This goes much deeper. Angelina bit her lip, her mind racing. We need this on record. We go to the Sheik again. Maya shook her head, disagreeing with the proposed plan. Not yet. If we go now, Warren will bury it before we finish connecting the trail, using his influence to suppress the evidence. We need hard, irrefutable proof, not just traces and suspicions. Amal tapped her pen against the table, her thoughts churning. There's a retired financial controller, Elijah Rowe. He used to handle internal audits before he got pushed out during a restructuring. He might have originals, the kind of documents that can't be easily erased. Maya nodded slowly, considering the possibility. Can you reach him? Angelina offered her assistance. I'll try. He trusted me once. He knew I was trying to do the right thing. 3 days later, Maya, Amal, and Angelina sat in Elijah Rowe's modest townhouse in Queens, a world away from the sleek corporate offices of Al Rashid Capital. He was in his 70s, his face weathered by time and experience, his white beard neatly trimmed. He wore a thick cable-knit sweater, a comforting reminder of simpler times. His home smelled of lemon polish and old paper, a scent that evoked a sense of history and tradition. I knew this day would come, Elijah said, pouring tea into delicate china cups. They thought I was too old, too slow, that I wouldn't notice what they were doing. But the truth is, I kept copies not for revenge, but for justice. He disappeared into a back room and returned with a dusty lockbox, its metal tarnished with age. Inside were ledgers, emails, and internal memos dating back 5 years, all meticulously organized and tied to legacy holdings and the EJI funding. This is your smoking gun, he said, his voice firm and unwavering. But be careful. Philip Warren isn't alone in this. Some of the names you'll find, they go higher than board level to people you wouldn't suspect. Maya opened one ledger and felt a chill run down her spine. Among the names was someone unexpected, Harold Coington, the firm's legal counsel and a personal friend of Sheikh Hassan's. Her heart pounded in her chest. If we name him, it'll shake everything. Could bring the entire operation crashing down. Elijah looked her in the eye, his gaze filled with a deep sense of conviction. Then shake it, because if you don't, this will all happen again. These people will never stop unless they're held accountable. That night, Maya reviewed every document, cross-referencing dates, amounts, and names. She connected timelines, flagged key transfers, and mapped the complex network of connections between Legacy Holdings, Northbriar Equity, and the compromised accounts. She built a master file, encrypting it to protect its contents, and backed it up on 3 separate drives, ensuring its survival no matter what happened. In her notes, she labeled the final folder, the Unseen Ledger. A reminder of the secrets it held, the truths that had been hidden for far too long. At dawn, exhausted but determined, Maya sent one copy of the file to Veronica, another to Amal and Angelina, and a third to a secure external legal advisor that Elijah had recommended, a former federal prosecutor turned corporate ethics consultant, someone with the experience and integrity to navigate the treacherous waters ahead. Then she waited, the minutes stretching into an eternity. By 10 a.m., she received a reply from Veronica, a single sentence that spoke volumes. This will burn down the house. Are you ready? Maya typed back, her fingers flying across the keyboard. The house was already on fire. We're just ringing the alarm. She knew what came next. At the following board meeting, Veronica and Maya would present their findings in full, laying bare the evidence of corruption and deceit. There would be no denials, no way to sweep the truth under the rug. This time, they had signatures, timestamps, email chains, and Elijah's sworn affidavit. a comprehensive and irrefutable case. But more than that, they had truth on their side. Not just corporate truth, but moral truth. The kind that shines a light into corners people hoped would stay dark, exposing the rot and demanding accountability. As Maya sat at her desk, sipping bitter black coffee, she looked out at the city skyline, a vast expanse of steel and glass. The wind rushed through the city, brushing against the glass towers and whipping through forgotten alleys. Somewhere below, a child drank from a faucet in a reservation school, unaware that the water might still be unsafe, tainted by the greed of those who had stolen from them. But perhaps not for long, because someone had finally read the ledger, and the truth was about to be revealed. The boardroom was colder than usual, not in temperature, but in tone. Silence buzzed louder than speech, an oppressive presence that filled the space. The long mahogany table stretched between the accused and the accusers like a chasm, separating those who had betrayed their trust from those who sought to expose their crimes. Maya Williams sat with her back straight, her laptop open before her, her fingers resting calmly on the keyboard, ready to unleash the evidence she had gathered. Veronica Ellison was beside her, exuding a quiet fury. A folder of paper documents fanned out in front of her like a deck of truth, each page a testament to the deceit that had been perpetrated. Across the table, Philip Warren sat tight-lipped, a muscle twitching beneath his jaw, betraying his inner turmoil. Harold Coington, the firm's legal counsel and until now seemingly untouchable, glanced between them with a forced smile, the kind worn by men who know the fall is coming but are still praying for a rope, hoping for a last-minute reprieve. Sheikh Hassan arrived last, flanked by two Gulf partners and his translator. He gave a brief nod, acknowledging the assembled group, then took his seat at the head of the table, his gaze unwavering. "Proceed," he said, his voice low and measured, his expression betraying nothing of what he was thinking. Veronica began, her voice clear and strong, cutting through the oppressive silence. "Your Excellency, what we are about to present is not just a financial discrepancy. It's systemic, it's deliberate, and it's a betrayal of everything your foundation was meant to stand for." She gestured toward Maya, signaling her to begin the presentation. Maya clicked a button, and the monitor behind her lit up with a flowchart of transactions, a complex web of deceit that started with Legacy Holdings, branched into Northbriar Equity, and then scattered like spores into offshore accounts, all tied back to projects originally intended for humanitarian and environmental aid. For 3 years, Maya began, her voice steady and controlled. These funds were redirected, diverted from their intended purpose. Projects approved in good faith, including the Environmental Justice Initiative, were stripped of their allocated finances. Over $40 million vanished through layers of shell firms, disappearing into the darkness. She paused, letting the enormity of the sum sink in. "We traced the IP signatures, matched login credentials, and obtained sworn testimony from Elijah Rowe, a former controller who was forced into early retirement after questioning these transactions." Veronica handed a printed affidavit down the table, its contents detailing Elijah's first-hand account of the scheme. A few board members leaned in, their brows tightening as they absorbed the information. Maya continued, her voice unwavering. "The misdirection was intentional, not the result of clerical errors or oversight. Mr. Warren approved payments marked as infrastructure facilitation, often weeks before public votes on the initiatives, ensuring that the funds would never reach their intended recipients." Philip opened his mouth to interrupt, but Veronica raised a hand, silencing him. "You'll have your turn, Mr. Warren, but Sheikh Hassan has asked that she be allowed to finish before you speak." Maya clicked again, and another slide appeared, this one showing email correspondences between Warren and Coington, the very documents that laid bare their conspiracy. "Furthermore," she said, her voice unwavering, "we found communications between Mr. Warren and Harold Coington discussing contingency protections should this come to light. The language included phrases like redirect public outrage, utilize procedural delays, and, in one particularly troubling instance, neutralize whistle potential." Harold's smile cracked, the facade of composure crumbling. "This is being taken out of context," he protested weakly, his voice losing its usual confidence. Sheikh Hassan turned to him, his gaze piercing. "Is it your voice in these emails, Mr. Cowington?" Harold shifted uncomfortably. "I cannot confirm without seeing the full threads. These could be forgeries, manipulations of the truth." Veronica handed him a printout of the full email chains, the evidence undeniable. "You wrote them the 12th of June, the 3rd of July, and the 19th of August." Maya interjected, her voice cutting through the tension. "The date of the redirection aligns with the board's final sign-off on the EJI. You leveraged trust for personal gain, betraying your responsibilities." For a moment, no one spoke, the silence broken only by the soft whirring of the ventilation system. Then the Sheik leaned forward, his expression grim. "Mr. Warren, Mr. Cowington, do you deny these findings?" Philip stared at the screen, defiance flickering in his eyes, but the weight of the evidence was crushing him. "We acted in the firm's best interest," he stammered, his voice losing its authority. "We were diversifying assets, optimizing capital flow, ensuring the long-term profitability of the organization. By stealing humanitarian funds?" One of the Gulf partners hissed, his voice filled with barely suppressed rage. "By enriching yourselves at the expense of those in need?" Harold tried a different tactic, attempting to deflect the blame. "The legal structure allows for flexible allocations within subsidiaries," he argued weakly. "The funds were not misappropriated. They were simply reallocated to other areas of the business." "Do not insult me with your legalistic jargon," the Sheik snapped, his calm demeanor shattered. "We fund these initiatives to restore what others have broken, to empower what has been ignored, not to enrich charlatans in suits. You have betrayed that trust." He stood abruptly, his movements conveying his fury and resolve. "In accordance with Clause 7(4) of the Board Governance Charter, I am enacting emergency oversight and immediate suspension of both Mr. Warren and Mr. Cowington. Their access to internal systems is revoked, pending formal investigation." A flurry of action followed. IT personnel entered the room, their faces grim and professional. Philip's laptop was taken, his connection to the company severed. Harold's phone was confiscated, cutting off his access to the outside world. Maya watched them both shrink before her eyes, not physically, but spiritually. The curtain had dropped, the act was over, and they were exposed for what they were. Veronica whispered to Maya, her voice filled with a quiet sense of triumph. "We did it." But Maya wasn't celebrating yet. Her eyes swept the room, searching for any other signs of deceit, any other potential threats lurking in the shadows. She knew enough to recognize that snakes don't always slither out in the open. Some stay quiet and wait, biding their time, planning their next move. After the meeting, the Sheik requested a private word with Maya. Inside his personal office, a sun-drenched suite lined with books and Middle Eastern art, he poured her tea himself, a gesture of respect and gratitude. "You have served this firm with more integrity in weeks than some have in years," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "Tell me, Miss Williams, why did you fight so hard? What motivated you to risk everything to expose this corruption?" Maya hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Because I've lived in places where justice was an afterthought, where the powerful exploited the weak with impunity. And I won't let it stay that way, not if I can help it. Not while I have the strength to fight." The Sheik nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. "There is strength in that pain, a fire that cannot be extinguished. I see it in you, Miss Williams." He handed her a small envelope, its contents unknown. "My team will offer you a permanent advisory position, with full clearance and an equal voice in all matters. I want you to continue to be a force for good within this organization." Maya opened the envelope, but didn't look inside, her mind still processing the events of the day. "Thank you, Your Excellency, but I need time to think. This has all been a lot." "I respect that. Take the time you need, but know that your contributions are valued." That night, Maya sat on her fire escape, the city glowing beneath her, a million lights twinkling in the darkness. The air was cool and crisp, carrying the scent of rain. Somewhere in the distance, church bells rang, their sound echoing through the canyons of buildings. She looked at the envelope again, the offer of a permanent position within her grasp, and then set it aside untouched. Her father's old compass sat beside her, the same one he carried through civil rights marches, a symbol of his unwavering commitment to justice. This victory wasn't just hers. It belonged to every voice that had been ignored, every community that had been exploited, every child denied clean water. It belonged to every person who had dared to stand up for what was right, even when the odds were stacked against them. And as she looked out into the night, Maya knew that this was just the beginning. The reckoning was here, and the ledger was no longer unseen. The truth had been revealed, and the world would never be quite the same. The following morning, the hallways of Al Rashid Capital. The atmosphere crackled with an energy that wasn't quite relief and certainly not celebration. It was something more akin to uncertainty. Philip Warren and Harold Covington were gone, suspended without a set return date. Their names had vanished from the system directory. Their offices were locked down, the doors sealed for a 51 minutes and 7 seconds audit. But Maya knew better than to believe that power simply disappears. It morphs, it lies dormant, it seeks out weaknesses, waiting for the opportune moment to resurface. Maya entered the 24th floor conference room for an unscheduled internal compliance meeting. Dr. Amal Faird sat at the head of the table, having taken on the interim oversight of internal risk management. Next to her were Veronica, Angelina, and two newly introduced partners, one flown in from Dubai, the other from Houston. Amal began the session with a straightforward declaration. We've removed two of the firm's most senior figures in 51 minutes and 42 seconds in less than 2 weeks. That creates a void, and voids attract opportunists. Maya nodded slowly. We can't allow the structural deficiencies they exploited to remain. If we only get rid of the individuals but keep the systems that shielded them, we've accomplished nothing. Veronica chimed in. We need to rebuild with transparency woven into the very fabric of this place, from the inside out. That means fundamentally redefining our oversight processes, moving beyond mere performative compliance. The Dubai partner, a slender man in a sharply tailored navy suit, leaned forward intently. And it means some uncomfortable 52 minutes and 15 seconds conversations are going to have to take place. There are still stakeholders who were staunch supporters of Warren and Covington. The Houston partner, older and more level-headed, spoke in a low voice. People don't betray institutions on a whim. They do it because they believe no one is paying attention. Maya tapped her pen against her notebook. Then let's make vigilant oversight a matter of policy, not just a reactive measure. By noon, the team had outlined the first draft of a new compliance framework, which included mandatory quarterly audits conducted with third-party oversight, anonymous whistleblower channels offering guaranteed legal 52 minutes and 46 seconds protection, and a rotating ethics committee comprised of representatives from across different departments. It was a radical approach, but it was absolutely necessary. Later that afternoon, Maya met privately with Veronica in her office. Veronica closed the door behind her and gestured for Maya to sit. You've altered the very pulse of this place, Maya. People are talking differently now. They're actually listening to each other. I didn't do it alone, Maya replied. No, Veronica conceded. But you were the spark that ignited the flame. And now you have to decide what kind of fire you want to set next. Maya exhaled slowly. The sheik offered me a permanent position. Strategic 53 minutes and 18 seconds ethics advisor. Veronica raised an eyebrow in surprise. And I haven't decided because staying means committing to a system I've only just begun to place my trust in. And leaving means abandoning the work that truly matters. Veronica leaned back in her chair, considering. You know what I think? I think the system is only as upright as the individuals who are willing to stay and fight to fix it. And you're honest. That evening, Maya took the subway out to Brooklyn, to a community center where she had once volunteered. She hadn't been back in years. The center 53 minutes and 50 seconds appeared almost exactly as she remembered it. Peeling paint, the clamor of kids, metal chairs scattered in the foyer, but the energy was welcomingly familiar. She found Mr. Duncan, the retired teacher who used to run the after-school programs there. Maya? He asked, adjusting his glasses on his nose. Hi, Mr. Duncan. It's been a while. You look like someone who's been battling dragons. Maybe just their accountants. He chuckled, a deep, crackling sound. Still sharp as ever. Come in. They sat together in his small office, the walls adorned with faded photos of students and volunteers from years past. Maya 54 minutes and 22 seconds explained everything that had transpired. The whistleblowing, the contracts, the misappropriated funds intended for tribal communities. When she had finished, Mr. Duncan remained silent for a long moment. Then he said softly, "You remind me of your father, you know that?" He never raised his voice, unless it was on behalf of someone else. Maya looked down at her hands. "I just wish he could see it." "Oh, I think he does." As she was leaving the center, Maya paused by the wall near the exit. There was an old photograph from 20 years ago. A group of volunteers with their fists raised 54 minutes and 54 seconds in front of a vibrant mural. There, on the far right, was a teenage Maya standing beside her father, both of them grinning broadly. She smiled to herself. Some legacies didn't require grand monuments. Back at her apartment that night, Maya finally opened the envelope that the sheik had given her. The offer was more generous than she had ever imagined earning. But it wasn't the money that truly struck her. It was the letter inside, handwritten in elegant script. "Miss Williams," it began. "In the stories my grandfather told me, justice was always slow, but inevitable. He said, the ones 55 minutes and 27 seconds who light candles in dark rooms are the ones we remember. You lit a candle here. Stay. Help us keep it burning. H." The next morning, Maya walked into the sheik's office before the board had even convened. He looked up from his desk, surprised but composed. "I accept," she said, and a twinkle appeared in his eyes. "Then let us begin." At the meeting that followed, Maya was introduced not merely as an advisor, but as a permanent voice on the strategic ethics panel, a role created specifically in her honor. Applause rippled through the room. Not thunderous, 56 minutes and 1 second, but heartfelt. Even some who had initially doubted her now nodded with respect. And when the meeting concluded, and everyone filtered out into the hallways of marble and glass, Maya lingered behind. She gazed around the empty boardroom, the very space where lies had once resided, cloaked in expensive suits and silk, and she smiled faintly. There was still so much work to be done. But for the first time, it felt like power was on the side of truth. Maya Williams stepped back into the grand lobby of the Empire Grand Hotel with a sense of quiet purpose. The staff lanyard that 56 minutes and 31 seconds had once defined her was gone, replaced by a badge that identified her as the Strategic Ethics Advisor for Al Rashid Capital's American operations. She paused for a moment beneath the dazzling crystal chandelier, breathing in the familiar scent of fresh flowers mingling with the polished marble. Every detail of this place served as a testament to her journey, from carrying trays to shaping policy, and she carried the weight of that transformation with a profound sense of gratitude. "Ms. Williams," a familiar voice called out. It was Carmen, the housekeeper who had cheered 57 minutes Maya on from day one. She stood near the concierge desk, holding a small, carefully wrapped gift. When their eyes met, Carmen's wide grin lit up her warm face. "You did it," Carmen said simply, handing her the package. It was a delicate wooden jewelry box, faintly scented with sandalwood. "Carmen, open it," Maya urged. "You've earned it." Maya lifted the lid. Inside rested a burnished brass token, etched with the words "Voice of Integrity," encircled by elegant Arabic calligraphy. Caught 57 minutes and 32 seconds between surprise and deep emotion, Maya held it close to her heart. Carmen reached out and gently squeezed her hand. "This belongs to you," Carmen said softly. "From everyone upstairs who says, thank you." Maya swallowed, her throat tight with emotion. She had never imagined that she would be honored for stepping forward. But here she was, in a place that had once overlooked her, now revering her courage. That afternoon, she sat in the concierge lounge with Veronica Ellison. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, illuminating the steam rising from their tea. 58 minutes and 2 seconds. They're planning a plaque, Veronica whispered conspiratorially. In the lobby. In your honor. Maya blinked, taken aback. A plaque. Veronica nodded. Underneath your brass token. They want the inscription to read. Saved by a voice that refused to stay silent. It'll be visible to every guest who enters. Maya felt a warm swell of emotion deep within her chest. She pictured travelers, executives, visitors pausing to read those words, perhaps remembering that it's never too late to speak up. That evening, the construction crew arrived quietly. 58 minutes and 37 seconds they placed a small brass plaque at the base of the concierge desk. The evening light caught its gentle shine as Maya brushed past on her way out. Her phone buzzed. A message from Amal. Native communities in Minnesota and Arizona have been informed. They're mobilizing long-term monitoring teams. You started something bigger than us. Maya closed her eyes and exhaled slowly. This wasn't merely corporate change. It was real-world justice reaching into distant corners. Clean water, accountability, broken promises. 59 minutes and 7 seconds being mended. A week later, Maya attended the public unveiling of the plaque. A small crowd had gathered, including employees, board partners, journalists, and hotel guests. A board member gave a short speech, his voice filled with sincere gratitude. Then Veronica invited Maya forward. Cameras clicked. Microphones captured her smiling face. She cleared her throat. I don't know what size this plaque is, Maya began. But I know what size our voices can be. No matter where we come from, no matter what we do, a maid can carry a message. A maid can ask a 59 minutes and 42 seconds question. And that's where courage begins. She looked out at the faces before her, some curious, some deeply moved. This plaque isn't mine. It belongs to every person here who chooses clarity over convenience, justice over silence, truth over comfort. Let it remind us. When you speak, someone listens. Polite applause quickly transformed into a genuine ovation. Cameras flashed. The lights reflected off the plaque, casting a warm glow across hopeful faces. Later, as the crowd dispersed, Carmen hugged Maya tightly. You did it, she whispered again, her voice choked with emotion. Maya 1 hour and 16 seconds nodded, her own eyes welling up. We did it. That night, she sat on her rooftop in Queens, the city lights spreading out like a constellation of stars at her feet. She held the brass token in her hand and scrolled through the texts and messages of support that flooded her phone. Messages from colleagues, tribal leaders, former classmates, even her mother's old friend, calling to congratulate her. Somewhere in the city, water was being tested. Somewhere, someone was finally being heard. Maya smiled gently and tucked the token into her pocket, right next to her father's compass. She looked up at the moon, 1 hour and 47 seconds clear and steadfast. Her journey hadn't ended. It was just beginning. The plaque and the accolades were proof that integrity could have a place even in towers of glass and steel. But real power resided in quiet persistence, difficult choices, and the courage to speak up when silence seemed the easier path. The wind stirred gently, and Maya closed her eyes. This city would always hum with ambition, noise, and compromise. But one voice, her voice, had risen above it. And in that echo, others were finding their own strength. Spring sunlight filtered 1 hour 1 minute and 19 seconds through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Al Rashid Capital's executive lounge, catching motes of dust that floated over the polished mahogany table. Maya Williams sat between Sheikh Hassan Al Rashid and Veronica Ellison. The newly formed Ethics Council gathered around them. Today's agenda: formalizing the new Integrity Charter and adapting it to projects beyond the U.S. Maya's heart pounded in her chest as she reviewed her notes, a testament to how far she'd come from wiping down lobbies to shaping corporate 1 hour 1 minute and 48 seconds philosophy. Sheikh Hassan cleared his throat, drawing the council's attention. We have seen how one voice can change our course. Now we must ensure that that voice becomes a chorus. He glanced at Maya. The Integrity Charter, will you present its framework? Maya rose to her feet, feeling the weight of the council's gaze upon her. She clicked a remote, and the screen displayed the charter's key pillars: transparency, accountability, inclusivity, cultural sensitivity, and community partnership. She pointed to each icon as she described it. Transparency requires open reporting of redirected 1 hour 2 minutes and 23 seconds funds and accessible audit trails. Accountability means no one, regardless of rank, operates outside our ethics parameters. Inclusivity ensures that our teams reflect diverse perspectives. Cultural sensitivity mandates a review from local stakeholders before any contracts are signed. And community partnership commits a percentage of our profits to the original project communities. Veronica added, "This charter also includes mandatory training for all levels of staff and an anonymous reporting hotline monitored by the Ethics Council." Sheikh Hassan nodded 1 hour 2 minutes and 54 seconds thoughtfully. "A bold charter. What do you anticipate will be its greatest challenge?" Maya paused, considering her answer. Resistance from those who are accustomed to opacity. Some board members see this as unnecessary bureaucracy. Some regional teams may view transparency as a sign of weakness. We must show them that it is, in fact, our greatest strength. An American partner spoke up. "How do we apply this globally, say, in East Asia or Africa, without imposing American values?" Maya answered carefully. "We adapt the principles, not the intent." Cultural sensitivity means that local councils will review 1 hour 3 minutes and 30 seconds contracts before those regions launch any projects. Our goal isn't to enforce compliance. It's to enforce respect. Partner from Dubai raised a point. And the whistleblower protections? Will they include visas and relocation support? Maya had anticipated this question. Yes. Any reporter of misconduct will receive full legal and financial support to relocate if needed. No fear of retaliation, no visa jeopardy. There was a moment of tense silence. Then Sheikh Hassan spoke. "This is more than just policy. It is our legacy. And if you truly believe in this, you will 1 hour 4 minutes and 3 seconds lead its oversight." "Maya, will you serve as chair?" Maya paused, the weight of the role pressing on her chest. She thought of her father's words. Justice often begins with one mind willing to act. She looked at Veronica, who gave her a supportive nod. "I accept," she said softly. A murmur of respect rippled through the council. Veronica reached out and squeezed her hand. As the council disbanded, Maya was met by Amal and Angelina in the hallway. Amal's eyes glowed with pride. "You did it." Angelina raised her 1 hour 4 minutes and 34 seconds phone. "Board minutes say you're now chair of ethics, global oversight." Maya exhaled slowly. "That means responsibility that extends far beyond these walls." "Yes," Amal said. "But it also means we change more than just one deal." That evening, Maya returned to her Brooklyn apartment. She carried an envelope with official council stationery. Inside were her appointment letter and the printed final integrity charter. She placed it carefully on the bookshelf beside her father's compass and the brass token. A moment of quiet pride settled over her. Then the phone rang. 1 hour 5 minutes and 6 seconds. "Veronica, are you free tomorrow morning?" Her voice crackled over the line. "For breakfast?" "Yes. We'll meet with the leaders of the Midwest Community Coalition. They want to define local oversight metrics for clean water projects." Maya smiled. "I'd be honored." The next morning, Maya stood before a small circle of community leaders, tribal coordinators, environmental engineers, and local educators in a modest building in Minneapolis. They were here because projects tied to Al-Rashid needed transparent metrics, and 1 hour 5 minutes and 37 seconds Maya's council aimed to deliver that. She spoke plainly and directly. "We want your input. How do we ensure that the funds actually reach the wells? How do we measure sustainability? How should the board be held accountable?" An elder named Thomas Gray Eagle, speaking through a translator, nodded slowly. "We measure health, children's blood, school attendance, fish in the river. That is true impact." Maya scribbled notes diligently. Other leaders asked about financial reporting, quarterly town halls, and oversight committees. A tribal teacher suggested youth apprenticeships tied to 1 hour 6 minutes and 13 seconds project maintenance. Each idea felt like building a bridge between boardrooms and living rooms. Back at her apartment that evening, Maya reviewed her notes, feeling a deeper sense of connection to the work. The council's charter had taken root in policy, but here it was beginning to bloom in real lives. At midnight, Maya stepped onto her rooftop again. The city lights glimmered in the distance. She held the integrity charter in her hands, the letters white and bold. We commit to justice through action. She closed her eyes and listened. City hum, distant siren. Wind 1 hour 6 minutes and 45 seconds on brick. A part of her wondered, could this ripple out beyond projects, beyond corporations? Could this be a model for systems everywhere? A distant church bell struck midnight, its echoes lingering in the night air. Maya whispered into the darkness, "We will see." The next morning would come as it always did, and with it more contracts, more communities, more testings of the charter's strength. But for the first time, she knew that a threshold had been crossed. Integrity, once optional, was now foundational, and 1 hour 7 minutes and 18 seconds this time, everyone could see it. The boardroom on the 37th floor was filled with city light, though today, that brightness only underscored the seriousness that permeated the air. Maya sat at the center of the Ethics Council panel, the Integrity Charter gleaming in front of her. Around the table, Gulf partners, regional managers, and corporate attorneys waited with bated breath. This was the first quarterly review since the charter's implementation, and expectations were running high. Maya opened the meeting with a nod of acknowledgement. Thank you all for attending. Today, 1 hour 7 minutes and 50 seconds will hear reports not only on financial compliance but also on the impact that our projects are having on communities, stakeholders, and partners. A regional director from West Africa, dressed in a crisp suit and patterned tie, was the first speaker. Our solar initiative in Ghana exceeded expectations. Thanks to your transparent bidding process, local contractors were engaged. We funded junior engineers, and local schools now have operational solar installations under student stewardship. Nods and murmurs of approval followed his report. 1 hour 8 minutes and 23 seconds, the man smiled. We're creating both accountability and opportunity. Maya spoke up. Thank you. Can you share the measurable metrics you use to demonstrate project success to stakeholders? He activated a slide on the screen. Percentage uptime, training hours completed, reports of school attendance, and clean energy production, all compared to projected targets. Maya glanced at Sheila Carter, an NGO monitor who was present via video link from Nairobi. Sheila nodded in agreement. Their data model aligns closely with our oversight metrics. This is promising. Next, a representative from Texas spoke about clean water wells for a Navajo community. We tracked water pH levels monthly, tested nitrate levels, and asked local residents to submit quarterly reports. We published all the results on a public portal. A Gulf partner leaned in with a slightly surprised expression. Published publicly? That's quite bold. The Texas manager replied, transparency builds trust, and trust builds sustainability. Maya acknowledged his statement. Now, let's address any compliance issues observed this quarter. A compliance auditor 1 hour 9 minutes and 27 seconds stood to speak. We flagged 5 contracts containing ambiguous clauses that resembled override language, for have been resolved through clarification. 1 remains pending review with the regional council. Maya traced her pen sharply across the page. Which contract is that? A Southeast Asian logistics deal, he replied. It still contains a clause allowing retroactive adjustments based on operational exigencies. Heads turned in concern. Maya's heart thudded in her chest. This was the moment they had all warned about. The charter under pressure where opacity threatened to return. May 1 hour 9 minutes and 58 seconds she said, and walked to the screen. Pulling up the draft of the contract, she began to read aloud. Should operational exigencies arise, the provider will evaluate and adjust the agreement unilaterally. She stopped reading, her voice firm. That's override by another name. A Gulf Council member interjected quietly, but operational exigencies do exist. Yes, I agree, Maya responded. but not without mutual review. We need a revision to this clause. We need to specify the triggers that would allow for such adjustments, define mutual deliberation processes, and set clear sunset clauses. A debate ensued. Attorneys worried about potential legal 1 hour 10 minutes and 30 seconds complexity. Regional teams cited local regulations. Maya listened intently, then addressed them all, her voice calm but resolute. We drafted this charter to uphold integrity. Without clarity, regulations become loopholes. Silence fell over the room. Then the Gulf partner who had spoken earlier spoke again. I propose a pilot amendment. Let's adjust this clause to include explicit approval from both the Regional Oversight Committee and the local community council. We can then monitor its effect. Maya nodded in agreement. Agreed. And we'll review the results next quarter. The meeting closed with votes taken, smiles shared, and a sense of cautious 1 hour 11 minutes and 4 seconds accomplishment. That evening, Maya returned to Brooklyn to attend a community fundraiser for a new water study in Minnesota. Veronica was there, greeting attendees with her usual warmth. Maya spotted a tribal elder whom she had met in Minneapolis. It was their third initiative together. They embraced warmly. The elder whispered, "The well is clean now. Children drink." They shared a laugh, and Mia's eyes filled with tears. "That's your work. We did it together." The elder replied softly. Maya looked around the hall, taking in the scene. Volunteers, fiscal analysts, 1 hour 11 minutes and 34 seconds smiling families. Integrity wasn't just on paper anymore. It was echoing across towns, schools, and nations. Back home, Maya prepared for a late-night call. It was Elijah Rowe, whose life in retirement had resumed, but whose influence was far from gone. "They're using your model in 2 African solar bids," he said proudly. "Transparency measures are now baked right into the contracts." Spreading Maya. She paused, a feeling of profound satisfaction washing over her. "We've crossed a line where trust has become transactional." He chuckled heartily. "You've turned your echo into a wave." Maya smiled. Her 1 hour 12 minutes and 8 seconds father's compass and her brass token sat together on her desk, symbols of both direction and integrity. She looked out at the city, where the lights shimmered like a million promises. This wasn't just a campaign anymore. It was a movement that had begun when a maid spoke up, and now it was carrying across oceans. A low spring rain drizzled over Manhattan as Maya Williams stepped off the elevator and entered the lean, high-ceilinged boardroom. Today's meeting agenda was unexpectedly brief. She had called it herself. The 1 hour 12 minutes and 38 seconds board's newest directive hung in the air, piloting an integrity council model for other firms and nonprofits. Mia's heart pounded, knowing this marked a new phase in her journey. Veronica arrived moments later and gave Maya a reassuring nod. The room filled quickly with partners, compliance officers, and 2 external consultants from major foundations. Maya opened the meeting with a calm breath. "Thank you all for joining on such short notice. We stand at a juncture not just for ethics within our organization, but at a point where we can demonstrate leadership across 1 hour 13 minutes and 10 seconds our entire industry." She clicked to the first slide. Phase 1. Confidential rollout within sister firms. The slide displayed a simple plan of pilot councils embedded in Al Rashid's regional offices across Asia and Africa. Below, bullet points read, shared reporting platform, community engagement metrics, and annual transparency awards. Veronica followed up, adding, "We've already seeded the pilot councils in Nairobi and Singapore. Initial results show a 40% decrease in contract disputes and increased local hiring." Murmurs of approval rose around the table. 1 hour 13 minutes and 48 seconds. Maya clicked again. Phase 2. External partnerships. We will invite 2 major foundations to adopt our model in their grant partner agreements. We've drafted letters to the Gates Foundation and Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors. One Gulf partner raised a hand. "Our board must see financial projections for this expansion. What's the ROI, or are we treating this as an expense?" Maya responded, "The return isn't immediate revenue. its reputational capital, mitigated risk, and long-term partnership leverage. We 1 hour 14 minutes and 20 seconds estimate a 15% increase in investor confidence, calculated through reduced due diligence costs and enhanced credit ratings. A senior financial officer leaned forward, intrigued. That's compelling, but how do we measure it? Maya smiled. We track discount spreads on green bonds, investor survey scores, and secondary market performance for projects under the Integrity Council versus control groups. The finance executive nodded thoughtfully. Phase 3, Maya explained, involved publicly publishing a yearly Integrity 1 hour 14 minutes and 51 seconds impact report benchmarked across projects. A move that was both bold and transparent. Another consultant asked, "What if this reveals failures or non-compliance?" Veronica answered firmly, "Because it will, and that's the point." Maya added, "We will highlight our successes, but also the areas where we need to improve. Openness breeds trust, even more than perfection." There was a pause as the room absorbed the implications of that statement. Operating on this scale meant vulnerability, but an executive from Dubai spoke next. "I support this wholeheartedly. If we truly stand for 1 hour 15 minutes and 24 seconds integrity, we must own both our light and our shadows." Heads nodded in agreement. The board approved the pilot program unanimously. After the meeting, supporters clustered around Maya and Veronica, offering congratulations and handshakes, but the pivot felt bigger than applause. It was purposeful. Later that evening, Maya attended a private reception at the Metropolitan Museum's Modern Wing, where Al-Rashid was unveiling a new art sponsorship. Among the guests were NGO leaders, Gulf dignitaries, and foundation representatives. Maya spotted the Gates 1 hour 15 minutes and 58 seconds foundation lead, Dr. Elena Torres, chatting near a sculpture on ethics. Taking a deep breath, Maya approached her. "Dr. Torres, thank you for coming." Her voice softened under the soft gallery lighting. Dr. Torres turned, a warm smile on her face. "Miss Williams, I've heard remarkable things about you." Maya smiled. "I wanted to personally invite you to review our Integrity Council model. Your insight would be invaluable." The foundation director nodded. "Send me the proposal. I believe there's real potential here." Maya exhaled quietly, a sense of relief washing over her. This moment symbolized tangible 1 hour 16 minutes and 33 seconds growth beyond her organization, a bridge into broader impact. That night, Maya and Veronica met quietly on the rooftop of the hotel sponsoring the gala. The rain had stopped, and the city lights danced across the wet streets. "You did it," Veronica said, handing Maya a warm drink. "We did it," Maya corrected. She gestured towards the skyline. "Look how far this can go." Veronica sipped her drink slowly. "I'd like to see this model go global with you leading the charge." Maya paused, considering the offer, then nodded decisively. "Let's build 1 hour 17 minutes and 4 seconds that roadmap." As midnight approached, Maya reflected on how this pivot echoed her first act, interrupting a meeting with bold, unwavering truth. That act had alerted a world that was ready for integrity. She thought of her father's compass and Elijah's ledger, of children drinking cleaner water and communities empowered, and she understood. If speaking up began it all, this pivot made it a legacy. Her phone buzzed with a new message from Amal. Integrity Council. The invitation went out internationally, and responses were already trickling in. Maya closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. The rain had washed the city clean, leaving a sense of calm, but tomorrow that calm would be disrupted by an undercurrent of change. A shift that originated here had the potential to reshape entire systems. Tonight, Maya Williams stood at yet another turning point, not just within the confines of a corporation, but at a pivotal moment that could redefine what integrity truly meant. And this time, she wasn't merely a voice. She was the architect. Maya arrived at the chic suite precisely at 9 a.m. The morning light caught the polished marble floors of Al-Rashid Capital's top floor, underscoring the significance of this day, making it feel different, more momentous, more final. She carried a slim tablet containing the complete dossier. Legacy Holdings ledgers, details of diverted EJI funds, links to shell companies, transcripts of incriminating emails, and Elijah Rose's sworn affidavit. Today, she would guide the sheik through the unvarnished truth. As she entered, Sheikh Hassan looked up from his desk and gave a single nod, a gesture that conveyed both greeting and the weight of the situation. He had arranged for this to be without witnesses, wanting to prevent sensationalism. No fanfare, just the plain truth spoken as a test of their collective resolve. "Thank you for coming," he said in a quiet tone. Maya placed the tablet on the desk and tapped the screen. "Yesterday, we presented the public summary. Now comes the full disclosure." She began with the transaction chains, detailing each line item, date by date, explaining how payments were routed through Delaware, Singapore, the Cayman Islands, and Nevada, invariably siphoned away from approved community projects. The sheik traced his fingertip over a digital flowchart, his expression remaining inscrutable. She spoke with deliberate care, clarity, and compassion, fully aware that this moment would define more than just a contract. It would define trust itself. Moving on to the email evidence, Maya calmly narrated each exchange in English, pausing whenever the sheik looked away, allowing the full weight of the betrayal to sink in. She emphasized the roles played by Philip Warren, Harold Coington, and other unnamed executives who were complicit in the scheme. "These memos aren't just allegations," she stated. "They are, in effect, confessions." The sheik leaned back in his chair, absorbing the information. His gaze drifted into the distance, perhaps lost in thoughts of the communities that had been betrayed. When she reached Elijah's affidavit, she highlighted a specific quote. "I kept copies because the work mattered more than the firm." The sheik closed his eyes, seemingly absorbing the moral implications. Maya paused, allowing the silence to speak volumes. Finally, she offered him the tablet. "I invite your questions. Our next step is yours." He looked up, his face unreadable. "You've given me my sight back," he said softly. "I was blind, trusting the structure more than the people within it." He gently closed the tablet. "Your disclosure is full, and your courage is clear." Maya watched his eyes, waiting. "What happens now?" she asked. He rose and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the city. Rain clouds were gathering overhead. He folded his hands behind his back. "We repair," he stated. "We pay restitution. We restructure. We rebuild trust, not only here but in every place where we have an impact." He turned back to her. "I want you to lead the oversight with full authority and final say on project disbursements." He extended his hand. "Will you do that?" Maya paused, her mind racing. Thoughts of spinning community voices, boardroom battles, late nights tracing funds, and her father's moral compass flashed before her eyes. She took his hand. "Yes," she said. He nodded firmly. "Then, together we'll make this company something worthy of the name it holds." Back in her Brooklyn apartment that night, Maya held the tablet close. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges, defining new standards, ensuring restitution, confronting resistance. But tonight, she allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. Her father's compass and the brass token lay beside her, symbols of direction and unwavering integrity. She thought of Elijah Rose's quiet bravery, of the tribal elders who had placed their trust in her, of Veronica who had always believed in her, of every child whose water might now be safe, of justice lived, not just spoken. She realized that the disclosure hadn't marked the end of the journey. It was merely the beginning of a deeper, more meaningful one. The city lights shimmered through her window. Somewhere beyond the skyscrapers and the crowded streets, systems that had been built on convenience and compromise would now feel the tremors of change. Maya closed her eyes, remembering her father's words. "Justice doesn't sleep, it wakes us," she whispered into the still night. "Then let it be awake, and tomorrow it will begin again." Sunlight streamed through the frosted glass door of Maya's new office, the door labeled in polished brass letters. Maya Williams, Global Ethics Advisor. It was a quiet, dignified space overlooking the East River, lined with shelves filled with binders and artifacts collected from community engagements. And on top of her desk sat the brass token and her father's compass. That nameplate didn't just signify her office. It signified progress. She stepped inside on her first official day, greeted by Amal and Angelina, who had arrived early. "Looking good," Angelina said with a half-smile. Amal handed her a large manila envelope. The deployment schedule for the Integrity Council pilots across 3 continents: Latin America, Eastern Europe, and Southeast Asia. "It's happening," Amal said softly. They sat down at the round table. Veronica was already there with coffee ready. "Congratulations," she said. "So where do we start?" Maya took a breath. "We follow the roadmap from our pilot handbook. We refine it for global complexity. We'll conduct ethics workshops in Mexico City next week, then gap assessments in Romania, and community roundtables in Bangkok." Veronica nodded. "The board wants your full report in 60 days. Maya turned to Amal. "We also need local auditors and cultural consultants in each region." Amal agreed. "We've identified partners." She gestured toward Angelina. "Angelina's compiling baseline data now." Maya picked up the envelope. "Today we begin building a global nameplate, not just for me, but for every community we serve." That afternoon, Maya visited the hotel lobby plaque, pausing for a quiet moment of reflection. She ran her fingertips gently over the engraved words. Staff members passed by, offering polite nods. In a single glance, she felt the full weight of what she had earned and the immense responsibilities that lay ahead. 2 days later, Maya presented to a board call, with international partners watching via video link. She wore a sleek navy suit, projecting both professionalism and warmth. The digital slides displayed recent progress: draft charters, recruitment of advisors, and a pilot summary from Latin America. A Sao Paulo representative smiled through the screen. "Our regional advisory board is ready to review," he said. "We've added indigenous leaders and local NGOs." A Romanian consultant echoed the sentiment. "Our compliance review began today. Training materials look solid." In Bangkok, a young woman spoke about tribal participation in project oversight. "Communities feel heard," she said. Maya nodded, feeling emboldened. "This is progress, but we need to share learnings among regions, replicate best practices without imposing, and learn from one another." Questions arose regarding currency fluctuations, data privacy, and legal jurisdictions. Maya and her team answered with clarity, and each response strengthened the network's confidence. After the call concluded, Veronica squeezed Maya's shoulder. "You held the room," she said. Maya's heart fluttered. "We built the room," she replied. That evening, Maya returned to her apartment to find a package from Elijah Rose. Inside were old photographs: Elijah in the firm's office 30 years ago, a younger Veronica, even Maya's father on early philanthropic visits. There was also a note: "Keep memories close. They remind us why." Maya placed the photographs beside her compass, tears welling up in her eyes. In each photograph, she saw lineage, integrity handed down, commitment passed forward. A week later, Maya attended a quiet ceremony in the Empire Grand Hotel lobby. A second plaque had been installed, this one recognizing the initiative: Integrity Council Global Launch, with Maya's name beneath. Veronica stood with her as they watched guests pause, read, and comment. A businessman asked who Maya was. A young intern snapped a photo for Instagram. Maya smiled, knowing that her nameplate wasn't just brass. It was emblematic of what accountability looked like. That night, Maya walked across the Brooklyn Bridge. The city lights stretched into the horizon. She touched the pocket that held her compass and token and thought of tomorrow. Meetings in Rome, virtual sessions with Sao Paulo, Skype calls with Bangkok, a global web of ethics advisors, local monitors, community partners. "This is just the beginning," she whispered into the night wind. Through the misty glow, the bridge stood strong, a symbol of resilience. And so it was with the movement she'd helped forge. Maya Williams landed in Mexico City at dawn, the sprawling capital waking beneath a rosy sky. She stepped off the plane, suitcase in hand, and was greeted by Carlos Mendoza, a local consultant and longtime advocate for transparency movements in Latin America. They shared a brief embrace, both acutely aware that what they were embarking on was larger than any single contract or firm. This was an experiment and a promise being carried across hemispheres. Their first stop was a modest government office in a historic district, its walls adorned with framed watercolor murals and rows of simple wooden desks. Carlos introduced Maya to regional stakeholders, community organizers, environmental engineers, municipal auditors, members of indigenous councils, and legal advocates. They greeted her with respect, not with automatic deference, but with anticipation. They had been preparing for this moment. Maya cleared her throat. "Thank you for being here," she said. "We're here to listen and learn, to build an ethics council that belongs to this city, not to us." She tapped her binder. Local language charters, bilingual training materials, baseline data from initial audits. A council member named Sophia, representing a neighborhood affected by industrial runoff, spoke first. "Our community has been promised remediation before," she said. "Money came, but the canals remain polluted." She fixed her gaze on Maya. "So, how do we make sure that doesn't happen this time?" Maya nodded. "By making funding and oversight visible," she answered. "By ensuring that community monitors nominated by your neighborhood have direct reporting authority. And by structuring disbursement so that money is released in phases tied to milestones verified on site." Another attendee, a municipal auditor, raised the issue of mistrust between the government and the private sector. "We've seen half-completed projects because politics change," he said. "How do you protect against that?" Amal, sitting beside Maya, responded. "The council includes provisions for binding community agreements," she explained. "These are registered in municipal charters, and audits are public. Changing administrations won't erase them." A tribal elder spoke through Carlos's translation. "In our culture, a promise is a pact," he said. "We understand legal terms, but we also need the spirit." He placed a hand on Maya's arm. "This feels like a pact." Later that afternoon, they toured a canal near the city's outskirts, where funds had previously been allocated for water treatment. Maya walked with Sophia and municipal engineers, inspecting pipes, gauges, and water tests. They stopped at a vandalized sign that read Proyecto Olimpio, a remnant of a failed public project. Maya knelt down and placed a small token from her pocket, a brass Voice of Integrity emblem, beside the broken post. It wasn't a fix, but it was a promise. Back in the evening, Carlos and Maya met at a local cafe. Over coffee and churros, they reviewed the day's notes. Pilot charters refined with local input, training modules adapted for Spanish speakers, council members nominated from affected neighborhoods. They sketched a plan for presenting the model to local media the following week, ensuring transparency from day one. Before going to sleep, Maya sent a brief encrypted update to Sheikh Hassan. Mexico City pilot launched, local council formed. First milestone scheduled. The reply came quickly, "Your work lights the path. Continue." 2 days later, Maya participated in a live televised forum hosted by a respected local journalist. She stood on a small stage with Sophia and other council founders. The headline questions: will this pilot succeed? Is it just greenwashing? Can foreign firms be trusted? Maya spoke clearly and confidently. "This isn't PR," she stated. "It's structural. We built safeguards before contracts were awarded. We opened funding timelines publicly. We elected monitors who report to their communities and to independent auditors." She looked directly into the camera. "If we fail, we will own it openly and learn openly. That's how trust deepens, not in secrecy, but in shared accountability." When the show ended, the audience applauded. Backstage, Sophia hugged her. "They believe it," she whispered. Maya left feeling both exhilarated and humbled. This model was no longer contained. It was moving outward, and every step carried risks. If Mexico succeeded, others would follow. If it faltered, critics would pounce. The next day, Maya flew to Bucharest, where Eastern European NGOs awaited her. The pilot workshop began, nearly identical yet unique. Questions here centered on digital data security, refugee integration, and institutional corruption. But the framework she had shaped fit, like pieces of a bridge molded to different foundations. By week's end, pilot councils would be established in 5 cities. The ripple had begun, with integrity as its current. On the flight back to New York, Maya looked down at her reflection in the window, tired, hopeful, and determined. She touched the brass token in her pocket. The skyline below reminded her how one voice could echo until it became a movement. She thought of her father's compass, pointing true north. Today it guided not just her, but thousands following in her steps. Integrity wasn't static. It was alive, spreading, anchoring itself in new soil. And this ripple, it was unstoppable. The morning sun streamed through the lobby's grand entrance, glinting off the brass plaque Maya had installed nearly 6 months ago, saved by a voice that refused to stay silent. Guests and employees paused to read it, igniting brief sparks of conversation. The lobby was alive, pulsing with an energy that transcended the polished marble. Maya stepped through the lobby with purpose, her ID badge glinting against her blazer. Global Ethics Advisor, Al Rashid Capital. Carmen observed her from behind the concierge desk, their eyes meeting in a moment of mutual recognition and pride. Later, Maya joined Veronica in the conference room overlooking the Hudson. Several journalists, NGO leaders, and board members were gathered. Today wasn't just a routine meeting. It was the official launch of the Integrity Council's encyclopedia, a compendium of best practices, case studies, and standardized metrics to guide ethics work globally. Veronica opened the session. Today, we published the first edition of our Integrity Encyclopedia. She announced, a tool for transparency, but more importantly, for accountability. A Latin American ambassador spoke next. This is a blueprint we can adapt to our national infrastructure projects. A Nigerian NGO representative added, this shows how business and community can co-create accountability. Maya, invited to speak, looked at the assembled crowd. This encyclopedia isn't an instruction manual, she began. It's a testament. It's the lived experiences of communities, council members, and professionals who chose clarity over convenience, justice over ease. Within these pages, you'll find case studies from Mexico, Romania, Thailand, and Minnesota of monitoring wells, editing contracts, and reconstructing trust. Each chapter shows how voices once unseen can reshape systems. She let the pause linger, allowing that truth to settle. Then she continued. Here at Empire Grand, beneath this lobby, a maid spoke truth. That moment echoed across boardrooms and across continents. Now that echo becomes guidance. If you carry this encyclopedia into your communities, you carry not just policy, but legacy. Applause followed, not for Maya alone, but for what she and hundreds of others had made possible. Cameras flashed. Veronica placed a signed first copy in Maya's hands, a gesture of ceremony, friendship, and solidarity. After the event, Maya returned to the lobby and stood before the plaque again. Carmen approached. Maya, she said softly, look around. Around them, employees smiled as visitors read the words aloud. Family paused. A child asked about the phrase, refused to stay silent. Carmen teased Maya gently. Your story is in their story now. Maya exhaled. It's theirs. That afternoon, she received a message from the Sheikh. Integrity Encyclopedia Live. My respect and gratitude. Beneath the message was a small graphic, a compass overlaid with a globe and the words True North. She showed it to Veronica. Looks like it's more than a compass now, Maya observed. Veronica smiled. It's a legacy. Evening found Maya on her Brooklyn rooftop, the city lights blazing like constellations. She traced her fingers over the brass token and her father's compass. She reflected on each chapter, from the first word spoken in a boardroom to the ripple across continents. It all began with courage and would transform systems. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a message from Elijah Rose. Well done. Your echo will carry farther than any of us can walk. Maya closed her eyes, breathing deeply. In the lobby below, her story sat in brass. In boardrooms and communities around the world, her work lived in real lives. Integrity wasn't a statistic. It had become architecture, infrastructure, ethos. She thought of those who came before. Her father marching, Carmen cheering, Veronica believing, Elijah preserving, and those who would follow. Community leaders, interns, young professionals. Each would build upon this foundation. Maya whispered into the night air. Let's keep walking. And as the city whispered back, a mosaic of distant hums, laughter, and car horns, she understood that the echo would never end. It would carry on until silence was only a memory, and truth became the sound that shaped the future.